They say that freedom is a constant struggle.
My fellow Americans, I am about to sign into law the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I want to take this occasion to talk to you about what that law means to every American. 188 years ago this week, a small band of valiant men began a long struggle for freedom. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, not only to found a nation, but to forge an ideal of freedom, not only for political independence, but for personal liberty, not only to eliminate foreign rule, but to establish the rule of justice in the affairs of men. That struggle was a turning point in our history.
Where Have We Been, 1964, is being performed at Monroe Correctional Facility today, August 6, 2014, on the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a piece of federal legislation in the United States that prohibits racial discrimination in voting. It was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson on August 6, 1965.
Is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle.
Freedom, the struggle to get freedom. As a freedom rider, they endured a lot of things in their struggle for our freedom. While Martin Luther King Jr. helped his best in other ways, the freedom riders were a main part of their success. From the bus rides and beatings, the struggle to make a place for themselves and the next generation of black people who were or was to become confined to the races of the world. As they sat down at white-only served counters, they were spit on and brutally beaten, thrown in jail and killed. They struggled still, went on to make sure that people would and will have equal rights as the white man. But the songs they sang and the power of their marches had a strong impact to let the next black man walk free down the streets without worries of being destroyed by the white man. As the freedom riders rode through the streets while mobs of angry white men stood at their destinations, ready to send them on their way back to where they came from, they were prepared for the beatings and imprisonment. They stood tall, with heads held high, as they knew someday they would change the world.
Determined, dedicated, one way or another, equal freedom made it. Rock City felt this wrath. In July of 1964, riots made a pact. Only cries rang out, no laughs. Dr. King had a dream, it seemed. He and the people believed, and so do we. Angels wept, tears of sorrow. The dark past brought forth light for today and tomorrow.
They say that freedom is a constant struggle.
I've been looking back on history and what African Americans have been through in the United States. Segregation, discrimination, beatings, riots, not being able to eat at the same lunch counter as white people. It hurts me inside just thinking about what happened. I'm glad I didn't have to experience what my ancestors went through. I'm looking at this documentary in class about the civil rights movement and those people who strive to make a change in the South. This was very much needed. Some of those names were Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Frederick Winter, and Diane Nash. These people knew that the South needed a change and it wasn't going to change in one day, but that didn't make them give up. Diane Nash was a member of the Freedom Riders, which was a group of people that rode on a bus to different states that was segregated. They were trained in the tactics of the civil rights movement. These people went through hell and back. They were beaten, hosed, even spit on, sometimes even killed. Young children were taken to jail. Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters were separated from their loved ones.
Change is what I dedicate my life to. Living in a city of people that are just spiteful, How can the color of my skin define me? When God gave me life, He gave me life to be free. Tell me what this world's come to and where I'm going now. Do I have something to look forward to, or should I look down? I was taught to stand tall, and I'm a march for my rights. But when I do so, they try to push me down and fight. So this poem is what I write, to bring justice for all. Or as I like to call it, it's a total recall.
This is a Mrs. Stanley Lou Hamer from Rouville, Mississippi. I went down to Indianola on the 31st of August in 1962, and after I had gone to Indianola, we were stopped by the Highway Patrol and the city police from Indianola, Mississippi. And on that same date, I was fired. The man that I'd been working for, he said I would have to go down and withdraw or I would have to leave. So I told him that I was trying to register for myself. And he said if I didn't go down and withdraw, I would have to go. And if I did go down and withdraw, I still might have to go. So I didn't have no other choice. I went that Friday night and spent the night with Mrs. Mary Tucker in Rouville.
I'm tired of being sick, and I'm sick of being tired. Our struggles come from our pain and suffering, and our pain and suffering comes from our struggles. I often sit and wonder, will it ever end? Will we ever make it through this? To be able to preach the word, you must be willing to learn and practice it. It was once said that I have a dream, but all thereof was nightmares. If standing up for what was so right was also wrong, I wanted to make it that much right. We were all born equal, just divided by color. But does that mean we must have hate and live in hate instead of love for one another? I will not sit in the back of the bus, as I am human as everyone else. It was passive resistance, nonviolence, and civil disobedience that kept hope alive for everyone else.
Hear my pain.
50 years and 12 days to this exact month and day, history was made in the city of Rochester. The 3-day riot destroyed many businesses and forced owners to either relocate or abandon their property. Joseph Avenue, Plymouth Avenue, and Jefferson Avenue are amongst the few major streets to be affected by the July 25, 1964 uprising. There were many people with low-income jobs as well as low property levels among minority families. There was also no funding for lower-class families for school lunches. 10 years earlier, in the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education case, the main debate was simply, separate was inherently unequal. In today's society, there is still a battle of poverty within the city limits. Lower-class families still deal with low property value homes, less help with medical expenses, and as well as problems getting help with school lunches for most low-income families. Hear my pain. Is this the life I want to live? Is this all there is? Learning about the civil rights movement has made me believe in change. Am I going to remain a number to the system my whole life? I don't want to live like this anymore. I refuse to be the next statistic.
But it's nothing that will keep me and get my spirit down, because now I'm in the fight for freedom. I'm just really tired of what I've been going through. We just got to stand up as Negroes now for ourselves and for our freedom. And if it don't do me any good, I do know the young people it will do good, and it is a help to our nation, because we need peace, and there's no other way than we can have it in trying to live together. And we've been apart, but something got to bring peace to this earth.
Kids, I'm sorry I wasn't and haven't been able to see you off on your first day of school. I'm sorry for not being there as much as I should have been when it mattered the most. Through my struggles and situations, I've learned to become a better man, which will make me a better father. Now that I have the chance to make it all right, I refuse and I repeat, I refuse to do wrong. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. You must be willing to travel the distance to capture it.
Hear my pain. That's why I say to you today, my friends, even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, I have a dream deeply rooted in all Afro-American sorrows. I have a dream one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed, that all men are created equal and African Americans will no longer have to bleed. I have a dream that I have been to the mountaintop and looked over the edge, and I have seen the promised land, where the sweltering heat of injustice and the sweltering heat of impersonation are all at our last finally dead. I dream that one day my children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character and their love for all women and men. I have a dream that one day racist lips won't drip with the words interposition and nullification. And one day little black boys and little black girls will no longer suffer the wrath of this nation. I stand at that mountaintop not fearing any man. While I yell at the top of my lungs, let freedom ring across this land. So I want you to know, we as people, we will get to the promised land and be able to say, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.